Hello, I'm Alex Mansfield, the host of Manny Talks Shooting, and welcome to another episode. This is the shooting podcast where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry. We'll talk competition, self-defense, concealed carry. If you like this content, check out our YouTube channel, Manny Talks Shooting. And without further ado, let's get to this episode. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Manny Talks Shooting, the shooting podcast where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry because I can, because that's what the show does. That's all we do here. We talk to people. But without further ado, let's get to introducing today's sponsor. The sponsor you know and love on this show is Go Fast Don't Suck. So go over to check out Bill at gofastdon'tsuck.net. He's got banners, he's got dry fire targets, he's got shirts, he's got memes to keep you entertained all week long and cry at yourself just a little bit. But it's all in good fun because Bill doesn't care if he hurts your feelings. For the most part, he somewhat cares, but not that much. So don't be sorry. Anyway, without further ado, let's introduce today's guest. Today's guest is Mr. Robert Wyatt of the Paracast. Robert, how are you doing today, sir?
Good, man. How you been?
I'm doing fan-tiddly-tastic. It's early July, if anyone actually cares when these are being recorded.
I don't know if people do. I mean, like usually it's like what, like a two week drop.
Sometimes it depends. Like I've been burning through these like crazy because I get to see you in a couple weeks. So I don't want to work on podcast when it gets super close. So I'm burning through a couple of these.
Oh, it's smart. You got to have a few in the can because it just makes life so much easier. And so
I think at one point I had like 5 in the can just because everyone was like, hey, I can do it today. Oh, okay, let's go. And then it's just like, I get to take like a 3-week break.
Yeah. With Paracast, we pretty much, if it's not every week, it's every other week. And even then, I was telling you earlier, it's like we've been doing this since 2014. And I mean, I joined the show in 2015, but that's a long time to continuously do a show.
Mm-hmm. And I've definitely found, like, even in my short time of podcasting, the fact is you have to be somewhat consistent. Like I missed 1 week a couple weeks ago. It was probably 8 weeks ago now. And it killed me on viewership. It was terrible. And I'm like, I am not missing another week ever. Yeah.
And that's always the hard bit is with so many podcasts. I cannot remember, but I heard this somewhere. It's like, if you get to like 8, you're just in rarefied air. Most people never get that far. They'll start out with a good idea and they quickly realize that doing podcasting and anything like this is actually a lot harder work than you would think that it would be. And it's like Paracast has always been so fortunate because we have 4 people that everybody, if somebody's having a bad week or something like that, everybody can kind of pick it up. And it's such a topical show where it's basically water cooler talk, and it just happens to revolve around shooting. And so that's kind of helped keep us going long after you've seen other shows come and go.
Right. It's not like the Hit Factor podcast that would have a topic, and then you got to talk about that topic. And then it's like, I think we've talked about this topic 50 times already. I was sad to see them walk away after Cody had his kid, but it was just like, I could understand. You can only talk about grip so many episodes.
Was that Shoot Fast?
Yes, the Shoot Fast podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, Cody's a good dude. I really like him, and even Joel. I mean, those two, they actually seem to have a really good show together. And when they said that they were going to kind of basically stop doing the show, I actually made a point of going into my iTunes and basically downloading every single episode that they had, just so that I had them as an archive, because I actually really quite liked what they said.
Mm-hmm. They had a good format too. It wasn't too long. It wasn't too short, but they didn't jibber jabber for the most part, which was fine. But there's some shows that need the jibber jabber.
Yeah, no, and the jibber jabber works. I mean, if that's your shtick. I mean, there's some podcasts out there that are, just the facts, man, kind of thing. And Paracast was never that way. It was always kind of like, 3 or 4 guys who happen to shoot matches together, and we just get around the water cooler and we talk about it on a Sunday and then post it to Monday. And that's been our thing since forever. And we just kind of keep running it. And for some reason, people keep listening. I don't know why.
Yeah. I mean, you're at what, over 300 episodes now?
333 was yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's been a wound.
Yeah. It's very convenient because you upload Sunday night. So the fact is I can listen to it on the drive Monday morning.
That actually is a part of the plan. It gives people something to do on their Monday morning drive. And And it works out great because here in Utah, our matches are always on Saturday, and a part of that's just the culture. But so we record on Sunday, talk about the matches, and people get to listen to it on Monday, so it's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting around here. At least it seems like most matches are on Sundays. Everyone's vying for that Sunday date.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Here in Utah, where being Mormon is such the predominant culture, I think that just kind of it's set it for a lot of people. And honestly, it wasn't until I actually started shooting matches outside the state that I'm like, oh, the majority of the places actually do stuff on Sundays. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think the best thing about it is if you have to shoot on a Sunday, you have all day Saturday to set up. You're not setting up Friday night all the time in the dark, in the snow.
Yeah. What's that? When in Michigan, when does your season sort of start to peter out?
You're going to get an October match.
Okay.
If you get an early November match, like if you have like the first weekend of November as a date that you shoot, you might get it.
Okay.
Because no one likes the cold. And typically the ground is so hard at that point, you can't drive target stands and wall, at least in our club, we have target feet, like wall feet that go into the ground. So you hit them with a freaking giant, we call it a whopper knocker kind of thing. It's like it's a pole with a big weight that you smack down into it.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a technical term, but we call it a whopper knocker.
In Utah, it's we have a similar one. It's a big giant pole with a pole on it, and you ram it into the ground, and that's how you drive the nails in. So we got a similar thing.
Right. So it's like at that point, it's like it's too hard, and usually everyone peters out anyway.
Oh, but yeah.
We, like in my club, we'll get a mid-October special classifier match because we don't always run a classifier at the club. Because we'd rather have 6 good field courses instead of 5 field courses. And here's El Prez again, because we don't want to open up another bay. We just want to have 6 stops.
Honestly, that you pretty much talked about my indoor matches that we run for USPSA. I have to do what I have to do for the affiliation agreement. But if we don't have to, the people, like I'll say, do you guys want to do a classifier or a field course? And every single time they'll take a field course. And it's kind of funny because I remember emailing my AD one day and I was like, why can't we have classifiers that are actually indoor friendly? And he's like, oh, they're all indoor friendly. And I'm like, wait, what?
What indoor range do you have?
Yeah. Is this the Smith & Wesson indoor range? Because I'm not getting that benefit. But no, it's fun, but it sure would be nice if they had more indoor friendly classifier stages, but such as it is, we usually shoot all year round. It gets cold. The coldest I ever shot a match was like negative 23 degrees.
Fuck
and
nope.
I didn't think anybody believed me, and so I actually took a picture of it. Because it's like, who's going to believe you're going to, unless you're up in Alaska or something like that, or you're just those cool dudes from Canada. Who shoots in that kind of cold? But no. Yeah, I did that when I was like young and really excited to shoot. And I was going to shoot every single weekend if I could. Now it's like, if it isn't perfect weather, like in the triple digits, I don't go out.
And even around here, we have like 2 local clubs. They're not real local to me that do indoor USPSA matches in the winter. One because they have an indoor range at one of the locations, and then one actually just rents the space from a gun shop, and uses their bays.
Yeah.
But other than that, we do. Well, my club at least does Steel Challenge all year round, because we can go sit in the warming shack and be like, all right, after we get done with the stage, we can go warm up for an hour.
Yeah, we've had more than one occasion where somebody brings out one of those big with the 20-gallon propane tanks with the big burner things on it, and everybody's kind of huddled around it like we're hobos out on the street.
We could just go get burn barrels and do that. And
I think that might be appropriate in some situations.
Well, you've been to your club and your indoor range. Those target sticks get shot to shit. And that's all right, that's the burn bile. You can burn literally. That. Yeah.
Yeah. We wait around. So we use every year at SLPSA, we always bring out new target sticks at Utah State. So we always shoot brand new stuff there. And that's our big purchase. We buy new target sticks and then we make those suckers last until the next year. And by the time the end of the year rolls around, there is literally more staple metal in there than there is wood. I mean, they're just done.
Yeah. You don't know what a staple puller is?
Not apparently here.
Oh, okay. Because like that's one of our things we do. Like we all have our own little staple pullers and we pull the staples out of each stick. It seems like when we set up for a match.
So my indoor match, I will take them every 2 or 3 matches and I'll just put them on the ground and I'll just start hammering all the staples down and be done with it that way. And that thing's run on such a shoestring budget that I make those things last as long as they can, and we do pretty well for it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm assuming Utah has like a section. Is Utah just its own section?
Yeah, Utah's got its section, and the section coordinator was Farley Collins, who was a fantastic guy. He actually he retired. He retired from everything. Like he retired his job and everything, and so they're in the process of having an election for the section coordinator, and I threw my hat in for that, and apparently nobody else did. So I think I'm it. I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but supposedly I'm going to be the section coordinator.
Right. So like we in Michigan have our own bylaws. I'm assuming Utah's section has their own bylaws, right?
They do. Yeah. I actually had to get involved with that whole process to even understand that. I always thought that the sections all just kind of fell under one rule set and bylaw set. Apparently not. Apparently everybody makes their own thing up, and ours hadn't been updated since 2010. So, I mean, like we had a whole host of divisions that suddenly came to be that weren't there at the time.
Yeah. And we like every match, like each like part of your shooter's fee, like I think it's like $1 because it's like a percent or whatever. It's like, or I think it just works out to be $1 of each person's match fee. If I'm speaking right, I know I'll probably get corrected. Sorry, Walt. But I'll probably get corrected, but that goes into like, we have to pay that to the section. So then the section gets money. And then eventually some of the section money goes to the section matcher of the year. You get, so some.
Wow. We don't even have that.
What? No. Yeah.
No, there's no section money.
Oh, no, we,
see,
yeah.
That's kind of the thing. It's like, I can't help but think that, I mean, and I understand, to the way I understand it anyway, it seems like USPSA wanted to kind of have somewhat of a hands-off approach when it came to the sections and basically let them run their own ship without too much interference from HQ. But it does seem that you have kind of just this hodgepodge of how everything runs. But that actually kind of like speaks to why I like to travel around the country and shoot matches, just because you get to see how everybody else kind of sets their world up.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of fun in that.
Yeah. How many different areas have you shot in then?
Well, let me see. I've shot area 1, area 3, area 4, area 5, not area 5, area 8. Yeah. And so we're going to go shoot. What do we, no, area 5's you. So I'm going to shoot that this year. Mm-hmm. So I still have a few to go. I keep wanting to go shoot area 2, which is really close to me, but it's always like right at the end of the year.
And it's
usually, yeah, it's full within the first 6 minutes.
Yeah. Unless you want to work the match. If you worked the match, you could get in.
And even then it's kind of sketchy because they usually have it at Rio and they get all of their guys down there just to do it. Mm-hmm. And so it's good, bad, the other. I don't know. I'd like to go shoot it just to say that I have. The only one that I'm a little bit apprehensive of getting into is, what is it, area 7 up in New Hampshire or whatever.
Yeah, the New England states, the very, very, very blue states.
And that doesn't bother me so much as it does. It's trying to get into the state.
Yeah.
And so I've never, like the flight, everybody says you got to be super careful on that sort of thing. And I kind of don't care, but at the same time, I mean, if I'm driving through, I don't care. But if I'm flying in, then maybe there's questions. I don't know. There's things to be concerned about. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Exactly. I understand that too. If I could, I'd drive where I want to go, but you can't drive from Utah to New England.
No, unless you're doing like the Cannonball Run or something like that. And even then, I don't have 30 something hours to do that.
Yep. John Batista might, since he lives with his mom.
This is true. I mean, it is amazing how much money you can save and put into CZs when you live at home your entire life.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry, John.
Under the bus, man, that didn't take us very long, did it?
It's okay. We'll make fun of him when he takes his food pictures and there's not enough ample lighting.
Exactly. But fortunately, I bought myself a 1,000-watt handheld flashlight, so we're gonna light up that entire restaurant when we come down to Michigan.
There you go. It'll still be fun. But yeah.
Yeah.
When did you actually start? Like, you've always been a gun guy, though, right? Like,
No. My father, he served in Vietnam, and he did some things, and kind of the been there, done that, got the T-shirt, came home. Really, he was never anti-gun, but we just didn't grow up with him because he just didn't really kind of want to be around him. When I got married, I kind of had that, I'm the man of the house moment. And I'm like, I'm going to go out and do what everybody does. I'm going to buy a 1911. So I bought a 1911, and it promptly sat around for a number of years. But then, what was it, in 2012, I decided that maybe I should like get into this concealed carry thing. And so I took a concealed carry. I bought a handgun. It was a Glock 23 because, 40, you got to get a 40. Yeah. There's no other thing than a 40. And in the process of that, I was just like, you are a dumb person if you have this gun and you don't get some kind of training on how to use it. And I got hooked up with this fellow who was very gracious. He took me and my wife out, and he taught us how to shoot safely and be accurate. And I had a great time. And Kyle was like, "Hey, it looks like you really like this sort of thing." And so he's like, they have this thing called IDPA. It's a game, but if you want to get good at shooting, this is a good place to go. And I was like, how do I get into it? And he's like, oh, I don't know anything about it, but if you look it up on YouTube and on the internet, there's tons of people that do it, and they can guide you. And so I went home from that class, looked it up, showed up at this match. I learned enough about IDPA that I knew I didn't want to show up in like tactical gear, because I am not going to show up and look like some Timmy or something like that. And so I had it was just like a, what do you call it? Like a polo, not a polo, a plaid shirt or something like that was my cover garment. And I showed up, and boy, the guys up there, they were so gracious. They do just like all good people in this game do. They take you under their wing. They put me on a squad with Steve Koski on the show. And man, it was all downhill from there. And that was what, April of 2013. And I tell you, I've never gone back. It's been great. I shot IDPA for a number of years, and that was awesome. And then I found USPSA, and that was, I quickly found out that USPSA was really where the fun is.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said your first cover garment was like a plaid shirt. Did you have a fanny pack and was your name Nothing Fancy?
No, but I did watch out for that guy. I was like, I'm kind of curious if that dude's going to show up as, apparently he never did.
Yeah.
So, but Nothing Fancy is such an interesting character because, and I haven't watched him in years.
Neither have I.
But I think he's such a prolific YouTuber that when people are first getting into it, you can't help but stumble onto his content. And for all the goofiness that is him, he was a lot of people's first exposure to the gun world. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, I mean, that's great. I mean, I kind of I'm like, if you're bringing people into gun culture, then I can disagree with elements of what you're doing, but God bless you for at least bringing people into the fold.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I don't know who can sit through an hour-long watch video. I'm like, okay, we're gonna talk about this watch, and like he has a system. And it was kind of funny because like when I got into concealed carry, well, guns in general, like I was still watching him. It was what?
Oh, me too.
2015, 2016 time frame, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And got like He could sell a Glock 19 or a Glock 17 to anybody. It could be your mama, but
he could sell a Glock 19 to Samuel Colt.
Oh yeah, and his gear checks were funny. I mean, it's funny because you live in the same area, and I think there was a couple episodes, probably a while ago, Tom mentioned a couple of those stores. Oh fudge, what is the big one he was in all the time?
I can't remember, but Impact. I think it was Impact Guns or something like that.
Impact or Gunnies?
Oh, Gunnies. No, it was Gunnies.
It is. Yeah, and
it is Gunnies.
I'm like, oh yeah, you guys are from there, so it's okay.
Yeah. No, he's a goofball. He's a goofball.
Do you own a fanny pack though?
Actually, I do. I actually do. My wife and kids they gave me one for my birthday one year as a joke. Like, you could put your gun in here. I'm like, no, I'd rather get shot.
Now, that'd be cool if it was how you had to store your gun for an IDPA match.
Yes. We did have a match once where it was a backup gun match. And so the scenario kind of thing was, you're carrying your wife's purse at the mall. And so you had to like reach in there, grab the gun, and we made him keep it holstered, but because you don't want him farting around with that. But yeah, no, I definitely not the fanny pack. But it's good times. I like everything there is about gun culture. It's so much fun just seeing. That's why we run those new shooter matches, and they have been such a good thing, I think, locally. It's just to see the light come on in people's eyes and kind of get them to discover how much fun it is that we get to do this all the time.
Yeah, and if you think about it, people who go to an indoor gun range, they don't get to draw from a holster, they don't get to transition, they don't reload under the pressure of a clock.
And absolutely.
It's the cool thing is to be able to show them yeah, you can do this and do it safely without a guy standing 10 feet back watching you, judging you because you're not super gun fuddy tactical gun store guy.
Oh yeah,
I like them. I like them as people, but it's just don't talk to me about guns. Just if I want it, just sell it to me. I don't care.
Right.
The tactical importance of this. Especially when you say I want to buy a competition gun. They have no fucking idea what we want.
No, no, not at all.
So you got to say a range gun, and then they still try to sell you a P365.
Yeah, and it's the funny thing because you'll have folks that will show up to the new shooters matches that we run, and they'll have some of those small guns, and they'll often get send me an email or a message or something like that and just ask, what are you doing? What should I bring? And I always tell them, number one, bring whatever you have. Just, if you've got it and you got a holster and you got mags for it, bring that. But if you have the option, bring the biggest full-size gun you can. And that works. But that's the beauty of this game that I think is just amazing, is that you take people wherever they're at. And I always tell people in our new shooter match, we always start it. I introduce myself and I say, I just want to congratulate you guys on doing the single hardest thing you'll ever do, shooting this game, because everybody thinks that in order to shoot USPSA, you have to be something like John Wick with a firearm. But the reality is completely opposite of that. Some people are good, some people are not so good, and most all of us in between. But we all decided one day we want to come out and shoot and try this thing out. And along the way, we found that there's a whole group of people who are so excited to have other people come out and play the same sport that we get to enjoy, that they will do everything, including giving you the gun off their belt to keep you playing this game longer. And when you see that light come on in people's eyes, that they're like, this is fun, and maybe I could actually be really good at this, that's something cool. And you don't get that all that often, but it's cool when that happens.
Oh, absolutely. It's so fun, especially when, they light up and they're like, oh, I like doing this. And, back in the day when you could hand someone, here's, your gun goes down, you don't have the right thing. Here's my spare gun. Here's some free ammo. Go shoot. Right. And then they're like, oh, and then they get hooked. And then they're like, oh, thank you. And it's like, now the ammo's tight. It's like, get your own ammo. This is mine.
Yeah. I'd like to say that I hang on to the ammo, but even then I think I still have given away more ammo than I probably should. But
even though you'll shoot a bag of random ammo that you've loaded at some point or picked up off the ground and shoot at a major.
I tell you what, the fact that I was shooting 154 power factor 9mm ammo, that was completely coincidental. Just because the press walked and I didn't check it since Georgia State, that was just, I shoot a CZ, so obviously it can handle it.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, you haven't blown one up yet.
Oh, I've blown one up.
Like Kaplooey or Extractor and Mag fell out.
I blew the extractor, the lifter spring, the magazine is toast. But everything else held itself together. I still use that gun.
But you still have plenty of magazines where it doesn't really matter, though.
Oh yeah, I could shoot an entire nationals match just on the magazines that I have, and I could never pick up any one of them. I have a few.
Do they all have extensions?
Probably about 75% of them do.
Oh, okay, then we're fine. Yeah, you're gonna be fine. Yeah, that's a lot of magazines.
It's a few, but I mean, people would be selling a CZ and they're like, "Do you want some magazines?" I'm like, "Sure. How much do you want?" "I don't know. Give me $50-$60 for all 5 of them." And I'm like, "Here's my money.
Take my money."
Yeah, I was like, I mean, what are you going to do? Say no?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, you have well over 100 CZ magazines.
Right. Well, that's true. You do have more. Well, do you have more CZ magazines than Steve Koski has Glock mags?
Oh yeah, by order of magnitude for certain. We figured this out. I think he had like 40 or something like that. I think I have like 3 times that.
So sorry, Robert's children. You don't get any inheritance. You get CZ mags.
Oh, the kids have already understood that.
Oh,
I mean, they've long since understood that, there is one love in my life, and it's not them.
Oh, fair enough. So for Christmas, we're just gonna give them CZ mags. Oh, I ran out of ideas. CZ mag for you. CZ mag for you.
But Dad, I don't shoot a CZ. Well, I'll just hang on to it for you.
Right. Well, here's your Rammy. You can shoot a Rammy, right? It's small enough.
It's small. It totally works.
Yeah. Now,
no,
go ahead. No, you.
As I say, no, my kids, like my daughter likes to shoot. She mostly shoots like her AR-15. That's what she shoots, like overwhelming majority. And Dakota, my son, he doesn't really, it's just not his jam yet. I mean, I'll take him out and he'll have fun, but he doesn't seem to have that shooting bug.
Yeah. Well, he probably didn't grow up in the age of Call of Duty, right?
No, we definitely don't let him play those games, because he probably would try and shoot me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Those were entertaining and got a lot of people like nowadays into the gun culture, but nowadays they're just not right for the political climate, I guess, is the correct word I want to go with. But
yeah, probably everybody kind of poo-poos everything. But you know what? When I was a kid, there were all the people that were saying that video games they caused mass shootings, and that was wrong. So who knows?
I mean, Pac-Man didn't hurt nobody except the ghosts.
Yeah, and they probably had it coming anyway.
Right, exactly. So, Robert, have you taken any formal firearms instruction in the competition space?
This year, I actually took a class with Travis Tomasi, and that was probably, I mean, at every point in your career, I've taken them from a bunch of different people, but I can honestly say Travis Tomasi at this point in my career was probably the single best class I ever took. And I don't know if it was intentional, but the overwhelming majority of that class was all talking about the mental aspect of the game. And for some reason at this point in time, I mean, I really needed to hear that, because something can go wrong on a stage and I can obsess about it to the detriment of the entire match. Like, you may as well go home because you can't let it go. But I mean, just hearing him talk about how to work your way through stuff like that it was so useful. It was such a great class, and he's such a nice guy.
Yeah, he is. He's one of the nicest guys in the shooting sports. I mean,
yeah, I think between like him and Tim Herron, you could probably have like a battle royale of who's the nicest people in the world.
Well, is it because Tim's short? But usually short people are grumpy people because they always get picked on because they're short.
Tim can get spicy. He certainly can get spicy, and heaven knows I've said things that have made him less than pleased with me. But I think the thing that makes Tim such a wonderfully good instructor is his ability to diagnose things. And we had him out. I actually hosted him for a class a number of years ago, and he told me what I needed to hear at that point in time. And I thought that was so valuable. But it was just that when Tim is there, and Tomasi's the same way, they really give you they give you this impression that they actually care about you and your performance long term. You're not just a paycheck that they're hoping to cash at the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I maybe that sounds kind of silly or dumb, but it just always meant a lot to me to be like, okay, cool. This guy actually wants to see me do well.
Right. Yeah. I'm just not a number to him. I'm actually a face and a person. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I always respected that about Tim. I mean, at the end of the class, he'd go through and he sent an email and said, this is what I noticed about you. Here's the things that you can do. I've still got that email, like in my Gmail. I mean, I have like all my important emails and stuff like that. That one's always, it still sticks there because I read it like constantly. And I mean, to the extent that you apply what you learn in classes, that's, neither here nor there, but it always just meant so much just to actually be able to go back and read some of those notes that you pick up from Tim and Travis and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I still I've got 2 emails like that from Tim, and it's quite nice to be able to read those and like figure out, am I still doing this that I need to work on, or is this still an issue? And it's kind of nice because I can always call him up and be like, hey, what are you doing right now? I got a question. And then you stick on the phone for like 2 hours because you just keep talking.
Oh yeah. And it's great because I mean, both Tim and Travis and a lot of the instructors, they're still relevant. They actually get out there, they're shooting major matches. They're not just like living on their so-called former glory, as the saying goes. They're actually out there and they're around the people and they're talking and they're learning new things. And you're always getting the sense that they're trying to further their skill set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need more people like that still. And like, soon as people become irrelevant or they stop shooting, like I love Anderson's ideologies on things are great, but he was in the time he really was heyday in the sport when it was stand and shoots, and like some of it doesn't work quite anymore. But
no, but Steve Anderson is he's still such a good guy, and gosh dang it if I don't love listening to his shows, because I mean, if you don't love Van Halen, you're probably a communist.
Well, that's true too. I mean, I don't know. I've been listening to his kid lately.
Yeah.
What is his show? His band? What? Mammoth? God. Yes. I'm gonna go with that. If I'm wrong, someone will correct me. I don't know. All I know is that it plays, and I don't look at my phone. So sue me. But
can't go wrong with that.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I like his kid stuff. His kid stuff's good. But yeah. Damn it! Now I'm gonna have to go turn Van Halen on later today.
Just play Hot for Teacher because the intro to that song is still one of my most favorite. I just love hearing that intro, and it's always good.
Yes, it is. I think that was probably my first Van Halen song. I think
the first Van Halen song I ever heard in my life was a song called Cannonball. And I really loved how he was just singing Cannonball, and I'd be just jamming out to it. My buddy looked over me and says, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "It's Cannonball." And he's like, "No, it's Panama, dummy." Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of age gap between us. So I learned and came from like learning about music from like a game called Guitar Hero. Like,
Guitar Hero is fun, man.
I mean, I still can't play it with a broke dick, but it was definitely fun. You get me off medium and I'm like, I don't know how to play this.
Well, the thing that I thought was so funny about Guitar Hero is you saw people that were investing the amount of time it would take to learn how to properly play a guitar. And they could have done that, but instead they're playing Guitar Hero.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, do you see the discrepancy here? And they're like, no, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you're a connoisseur of South Park, right?
I've seen a few of them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Those guys are hilarious.
Oh,
they pick on everybody. They don't give a crap.
That's why they're good. Yeah. It's because everybody's like inbounds.
Yeah, and I don't know. They've got to have like 30 seasons by now. It's gotta be.
God, is it that many? Holy jeez.
It's at least 20. I know Family Guy's over 20. And they don't give a crap either.
I'm old enough to have been around when Simpsons first came out.
Yeah.
That's just depressing.
No, I mean, you've lived through The Simpsons.
Yeah. Well, there was really only like 8 seasons. Yeah. And then there was a lot of fan fiction. It's kind of like Star Wars. So there's only 3 Star Wars, and then there's a whole lot of fan fiction.
Yes. I'd agree.
Yeah, I went there and now I just offended half the world.
That's okay. We don't care. I mean,
Attaboy.
yeah, we don't care. If we offend somebody, we're like, what if we don't? We're living a life worth living.
If I don't offend somebody, then I haven't done a show.
Well, that's true.
Because I mean, I call that Sunday.
Right. So, did you finally figure out how to shoot CZs without fucking them up being left-handed?
Oh golly, man, that was a 2-year period that made me basically want to quit the sport. And you hate that because like you spend so much time and energy trying to figure out what's wrong with a gun until one day somebody points it out and you're like, well, crap, that just sucks. Cut your thumb off, you idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, did your training partner John have the same issues?
No, that was a funny thing. I could never figure it out. And it was just all these, just this is like, why am I having these problems? Because the problems never, when I was shooting the SPO1s, I never had the problem. As soon as I went to the Shadow 2s, I didn't have the problem, but then it just started creeping in. And once it got in there, it was just never, ever ending. And I couldn't solve it to save my life until one day I'd gone out and then Kenny Terry happened to be there. And he's like, why is your thumb in the air? What do you mean? You got your thumb in the air. And so I shoot and drop the thumb, and it's like all of a sudden, like the cases are no longer like getting hung up in the chamber. Cause every time it would cycle back, I would just knock that case right back into the breech.
So it'd be your weak hand thumb, right?
My shooting thumb actually was sitting up high.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, by the time the slide actually came, the ejection port, my thumb was right in the way of it. Mm-hmm. And so it would just knock it right back in. And you could always see it because I'd finished at the end of the match. And like the inside of my left-hand thumb was just black because that's where all the carbon and the soot or whatever was just dumping out into. Mm-hmm. And so I figured that out and I was like, okay, well, let's just put extended safeties on there. Threw the extended safeties on there. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to test this. So I ran up and I shot the Idaho sectional and quickly realized that I was bumping the safety on because I have such a high grip with a CZ. So figured that out, came home, and I realized that if you take an AR-15 detent spring, you can jam that into the safety spring position, and that'll make it all but impossible to actually turn that safety on, and problems seem to go away.
Well, there we go.
So lesson is, don't be left-handed, kids.
Well, at least with a CZ.
At least with a CZ. Yeah, Glocks don't have that problem. There's a lot of better firearms. But that's the problem. I mean, like at this point, it's just a sunk cost fallacy. I love the CZ, and I probably have a small car worth of parts just in CZs in my basement somewhere. Mm-hmm. I'm certain beyond a shadow of doubt. I know I have 3 Shadow 2s. I probably have another one, but I don't know where it is.
But I mean, what? You were going to go to that Beretta, weren't you? You're going to go to the Langdon gun if that didn't work out.
I was, and I still love that gun. It's the greatest gun in the world. I love Berettas. Ever since like I met Tommy and realized Tommy liked that gun, I'm like, okay, brothers from another mother here, because it's just such a great gun. And then Dave Blanton, he shot it at Area 4, what was it, a couple of years ago, and that just confirmed, this is a great gun. And Ernest Langdon, he is a god among men when it came to building the rodeo. I know they call it the RDO, but we're always going to call it the rodeo. And he properly built that Beretta. And that, I know that Beretta eventually came out with their own version of it, but the optics sits way too high. It's not an elegant solution. Ernest Langdon by far did it right.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he definitely did. It's cool because it's super tactical yet super effective.
Yeah, and when you shoot that gun, the way that gun goes through its recoil cycle, it's Dave put it the best. It's like it's basically like you're just riding a wave. It doesn't have this real aggressive recoil. You're just basically just moving through it, and it becomes such an efficient little shooter. And then Kenny Terry, he bought a what was it, 92? No, what do they call those new ones? And
What
it doesn't matter.
the performance?
No, 92X.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was the 92X. I actually bought a performance, and I did not like it. It was not a very good gun if you're left-handed, because the way they have the frame mounted safety, it's not really conducive to a left-handed shooter.
Did you sell it as fast as Tommy goes through guns?
In a funny thing, so I bought it used, and Sonny, I have a friend who, I was like, oh, I'm going to sell this gun, and he's like, oh, I used to have one of those, and I'd send him a picture, and he's like, wait a minute, and he's like, is the serial number this? And I'm like, yes. He's like, that's my gun. And so I was like, and he's like, yeah, I sold it to this guy when I wasn't going to do it. I wish I had enough. And he's like, you're going to sell it? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, how much do you want for it? Well, basically what I bought it for. And he's like, cool, I'll buy it. And so in a roundabout way, he got his gun back.
Yeah. With how many bodies it's on it, he doesn't know.
Exactly. But no, the Berettas are fine firearms. That's the beauty of our game. So right now is there are so many just good firearms that, I mean, the sky's the limit. You can pick up any gun right now and come out and shoot. And that's what you see at the new shooter matches. Everybody's just showing up with everything and they're having a great time. The guns run. They've all got dots on them, because that's where the world is right now. And yeah, I love it.
Now, how many staccatos show up?
So the last time I had a 2011, actually a staccato specifically, was two new shooter matches ago. And the guy showed up with one, and I was like, that's a really spicy gun. He's like, yeah, my friend showed me this thing and I liked it so much I wanted to get one. And I'm like, cool. Just be safe with it. And he's like, yeah, I know, it's easy to get ahead of this thing.
Yeah, and especially if they're new on firearms, like that 2-pound trigger pull single action is pretty oopsie.
Yeah, this guy, I don't know what the heck he was. Well, I do know what it was. It was this Fikochi ammo. Fikochi ammo. And every time he fired that thing, it looked like dragon's breath coming out of it. Just these big old fireballs. And you're just like, what the heck are you shooting? He's like, it's just factory. I'm like, factory what?
Yeah, it's spicy meatballs.
Yeah, great gun though.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. The problem is if I bought a staccato, I'd want to put a metal grip on it, and then it kind of defeats the purpose of being a carry gun.
I kind of want to get a holster, like an inside the waistband for this Shadow too, even though it weighs like 54 ounces, just to say that I did. But I have that Dominate Defense belt, so it's not like it's going to pull down or something. I mean, that thing will hold up anything.
I mean, yeah, especially if we get the new belts whenever he decides to make those.
Yeah, that dude. I mean, Jason, he's just so busy with everything in the world, but they're good belts.
Oh, I know.
They sure are good belts.
Well, yeah, exactly. They're great belts. I mean, like, that's why you should go PAROA10 to get 10% off.
Yes,
exactly.
Still hasn't given you that code, has he?
No. Well, the problem was I don't know. I don't need a code. I just send people and they go buy things from him, and they usually spend like 2 hours on the phone with Jason. And then it's like, not my problem. I preface that with them. He will talk your ear off.
Jason has the gift for gab.
Yeah.
But he's such a wonderful person that it's hard not to want to sit and talk to him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That hoodie, you've got the hoodie, right? The hoodie is legit.
Oh, it's awesome.
Did you give everybody their coats yet?
Dude, no. I went and shot the match and I thought everybody was going to show up, but they're sitting in the back of my pickup truck just waiting for them to show up.
Just mail me Tommy's. I bet I'm the same size as Tommy.
Well, if he doesn't show up to the next match, I'll send it to you.
Ha. That'll
Take
work.
that, Thomas.
Yeah. But yeah, Dominate Defense makes a great belt. I'm super happy to be working with Jason and have an awesome belt, even though I paid for the first one. So
it's a good way to go, though.
I'm a little upset because your belt's probably the same way. It's the old style where it's reverse of everybody else's belt. Everyone else's belt goes the other way now.
So I have a lot of belts from him, and but even then, I think my first belt from him was, I think, version 3. Mm-hmm. So Clay Grover actually, he's kind of actually how we met Jason. And so Clay told Kenny, Kenny told us, and that's how we kind of got the relationship going. But Jason went through a lot of iterations of they were arguably really good iterations, but you just it's kind of the nature of all product development. You just find better ways to do stuff and more efficiencies. And that's just what we're slowly working through. And I remember when he first came out with that steel liner, thinking that was are people going to want this thing? And I'm like, well, this belt is pretty damn rigid as it is. But then once you get it, you're like, oh, wow. I mean, that's amazing. I think Kenny Platt up in Idaho was the first one with one of those. And I didn't think it was going to be all that big of a deal until you do it. And you're like, okay, this is amazing. I've got 40 Smith and I've got my limited, my CZ limited gun and four 40 caliber magazines on my belt, and it's not flexing or bending or anything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And there's no pressure on like your hips or anything. It's all like there, it stays. You don't have to worry about no belt keeper because the Velcro is there just to keep it from shifting. The latch, the ratchet's what locks it down. And people are like, why do you spend that money on a belt? Because it's worth it. Like you're going to go through a double alpha belt a year. And I don't think you can go through a dominate belt in like 5.
No, then there's such a good system, and a lot of it's because of that inner belt, the way he created that inner belt to actually collapse in on itself. Because the idea of a ratcheting belt wasn't new, but the idea of creating an inner belt that actually like moves with it, that was everything. That was huge.
And then the nice thing is it can be a great carry belt, even though it's not designed to be the carry belt.
Yep.
Sorry, Jason.
No, I actually, the inner belt, I've used it as a carry belt for most of my life. He actually ended up making me a really nice carry belt. So I wear that, and then I have my dry fire pants at home, or well, here technically, and I'll go throw those on every night. But yeah, just they're good quality. It's by far the best belt I've ever owned.
Yeah, especially when you got a heavy gun like an open gun or a limited gun or a CZ that's god awful. I know heavy. Now, are you interested in getting a checkmate at all?
I actually, I kick myself for not doing it. I had the opportunity to get one for $2,300. I guess it would have been 3 years ago now. It was 2019. And at the time, I was like, why would I ever go open? But now I'm kind of like, I kind of want one. And I'm such a CZ guy that I like the CZ platform. I like how everything's built on it. And so going to a checkmate is a very easy solution to me. I could see myself getting one someday.
Now, would you be basic and get like the regular checkmate, or would you get the Parrot?
Knowing me, I'd probably get both of them.
Well, right. One is none and 2 is 1. So,
and 3 is just about right. Because that's how I am with just about everything. Yeah, I mean, and usually what happens, honestly, is I buy the first one. Like when I first got my Shadow 2s, I was shooting. So the 2 main ones that I use, I bought in 2017, and I was down in St. George, and they had one at the Dixie Rod and Gun store. And I went down and looked at it, and I told my wife about it, and I'm like, oh, I'm really looking at this thing. Like, you should get one. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, so I went and grabbed it, and then I came back and I sent her a picture, and she's like, where's the other one? I'm like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, you have to have a backup.
Is that like instant permission to go buy another one?
and then she's like, hello. Yeah, I just left the phone there and went and grabbed another one. And so but no, she's right. I mean, I always have to have 2, because you got to have your main, then you got to have a backup. The 2 that I have, they're only I think they were about 40 serial numbers off of each other. It would have been cool if they were like, 1, 2, but I'll take what I can get. But I was talking to my daughter last night, and I came to the realization that's the longest that I've ever owned a gun continuously for shooting. Usually they're gone by now, but I've hung on to those forever.
Now, how many rounds do you think you have through those, or at least the main one?
Oh, I stopped counting a long, long time ago. I have no idea.
Is it time for a new barrel yet?
The barrel's still remarkably accurate. I mean, I've been pretty happy with that. I mean, there's at least 100,000 through it, but I've changed changed so many parts and pieces in it but the barrel has never been a problem. I don't know if I just had a really good barrel or what.
Now, how many slide stop pins have you cracked?
Oh, 3.
3? Well, I mean, that's not too many then.
No, when I broke my first one, I came up with a maintenance schedule. And that's the trick with the CZ, is just get a good schedule going and always stick to it. And so basically I have my match gun every year. I change out all those parts and I dump them into the practice gun, and then I let the practice gun break everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that works perfectly.
It's a lot easier to fix the practice gun in practice instead of match gun on match day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then what was it, last year I picked up a couple uppers that were optic readies, and I've been running those, and they've been flawless. I don't actually see myself going back to irons anytime soon.
Yeah, you're not Steve Koski, so it's okay.
Yeah, that poor guy. I think he's just intimidated by technology.
Well, he is like the boomer, right?
He is our resident boomer, and the idea of spending money is so horrific to him that
that's not true. He's like in Peru, like he'll go spend the wife will spend his money, right?
Ding ding ding. Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which is, it's not terrible. It's not the end of the world, I guess.
No. It's a good place if you like to get involved with the cartels and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, just a little old Utah Steve Koski who's not seen the light of sunlight in like 6 months.
This is true, Mr. Engineer.
Yeah. Now, do you guys get impressive shooters tans in Utah, or do you just stay pasty white?
Well, I mean, I have 2 colors, and it's either a lobster or white. And so generally during the summer it's one of those 2. So take your pick.
Yeah, it's not like your John Batista who's like immaculately like tan all time, but we'll blame his genetics for that one.
Yeah, that's Pinoy power.
Yeah. Yes. So now, how did you even get hooked up with John? Because John's in what, California, right?
He is, but I met him at Area 1, and John, if anybody knows John Batista, they know the nicest man alive. Well, I don't know. I've seen him get spicy, but he's such an outgoing guy, and it's hard not to like him. And he's like, "Hey, let's go shoot a match," and I'm like, "Okay." And so we went out, we shot Area 4 together, and it's kind of just he's been the guy I like to travel with. He shoots the same gun I do. And so it just works out so well that you have these 2 left-handed shooters that show up to a match, and you can effectively, if anything breaks, you have 4 guns between the 2 of you.
Now, are your guns identical, or are his guns suited out a little different?
They are dang near identical. The only thing that really I have different, actually, I guess he changed out his to a flat trigger. But other than that, he runs a little bit lighter of a hammer spring. I think he's running like a 10-pound hammer spring, and I've always liked the 11.5. And so I run that. But other than that, I can pick up his gun and I can shoot it just fine. And so it works out great.
Well, that's good. It's definitely reassuring when you can be like, my gun broke, my second gun broke, give me yours.
Yeah, that was called Magnus Cup.
Yeah.
3 guns I went through. That's what you call a rough match.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A super rough match.
But I mean, John he's such a great guy. I mean, if you look at him and the way he shoots, I mean, there's a reason he's called Elite Delta Force, because he shoots like his hair's on fire, and his shots are generally all over the place. But he is the embodiment of, half the points and half the time is still the same, is still a good hit factor, because he'll burn it down like it's no tomorrow. As soon as you put a dot in his hand, though, he's damn near unstoppable. He's such a great shooter, and he's so willing to spend time with you and just kind of like point out all the things that you do wrong. The hardest thing about John is that he's basically Brian Eno's reincarnated, and so he'll say stuff and you're like, I'm not that smart. Calm it down, John.
So it's kind of like if you're talking to Tony Wong.
Well, where do you think Tony Wong got it from?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Tony Wong, he's also, God dang, when I met Tony Wong at Area 4, And I saw those Glocks. I mean, they were the crunchiest, garbagiest Glocks in the world, but I love the way that Tony thinks about everything, because he's just like, the gun doesn't matter. And you're like, and when you really, really kind of like step back a bit, you're like, yeah, it kind of doesn't. I mean, there's a point of diminishing returns, but at the same time, I mean, look at me. I mean, we get wrapped around the axle of that. You got to have this super slick whiz bang gun. It's like, no, you got to figure out how fast you need to shoot something, and then be willing to suck a lot. I mean, be willing to throw Delta mics, because Delta mics turn into Charlie Deltas, and Charlie Deltas turn into Bravo Charlies, and Bravo Charlies turn into Alphas. But you have to not care about losing. You just have to care about the idea that this is how fast you need to be and move and see. And Tony Wong is, I mean, just amazing.
It's been far too long since I've talked to Tony, but life is that way, I guess.
Yeah, I really want to get him on the show sometime.
Good luck. You'll have like a 4-hour episode. I remember the first time I actually talked to him on the phone. I was working. I had to stay late one night into like third shift because I worked second shift at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were on the phone for 4 hours getting paid to sit there and talk on the phone.
But that's what makes Tony so cool, is he's so giving of his time, and he'll just talk, and he's just a wealth of knowledge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He'll give you everything. Even his Glock 26.
I love that gun.
He shot open with that gun. Did you realize that? He put a G34 barrel in it. Like, it'll work.
Yeah. And it was amazing. It was amazing because he goes through and he disproves all of these ideas that you have to have, do, and be things. And he's like, no, it comes down to shooting.
Yeah.
It's all the process.
My favorite thing I think he did right lately was using the AK PCCs.
Oh, he did. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, he was shooting AK, like I want to say it was the Kalashnikovs or something like that. I can't remember the exact name, but they were like, yeah, the AK variant.
It was like the AKV or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. And he was shooting those. But who doesn't like an AK though? Like,
oh, AKs are awesome. AKs are absolutely awesome. They're a fantastic gun. They just work.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see. I think it's time to pull up the listener questions because we're near the hour mark, surprisingly. No, wow. Not surprisingly. It's too easy.
Yeah, I will talk a lot.
That's okay because we always need talkers. But hey, as long as the conversation flows, no one can complain.
It's always about avoiding the dead air, and that's the hardest. That's the hardest thing in anything in radio is that dead air. And there's a point of letting it breathe. You know, you kind of that pregnant pause of, well, you know, but. You know, that 4 seconds of just dead air, you're like, did the radio go off?
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, the worst part is sometimes when you have laggy internet, that's why if every podcast could be an in-person podcast with good audio, we wouldn't have issues. But since we have to do this via the internet, there's always
rough.
And then you don't want to have the dead air, and you just got to be able to keep talking. And hopefully if someone's taking a breath longer than 2 seconds or you're drinking some water, someone will start talking.
Yeah. And you learn to do that. I mean, in the podcast world and in radio, and I'm sure everything, but you learn to try and like just fill that dead air time. And you're absolutely right. If it takes a little bit too long, your brain starts kicking in and you're like, okay, I got to say something real quick, because it's just death for the listener.
Yeah. And then they're just like, oh, I'm done listening. But
yeah.
Let's get to this listener question. So what are the 5 things USPSA needs to do within the next 6 months?
The 5 things that USPSA needs to do in the next 6 months. USPSA as a headquarter, well, they need to get a new president, so that's going to be a big one. Let's see the next thing they need. So I have often said one of the best things that they could do would be to go through and put a sunset period on classifiers. I am a firm believer that we have so many classifiers in the can that arguably have been shot out to the point of why are we even doing this? And I think if we could put like a 10-year sunset period on all classifiers and then say after this time period, we're not going to allow any that we're not going to be allowed to shot for score. Done. You're just done. And Jake and all the nationals teams, they've been really good about putting out some new classifiers. So we have new ones that are coming out. I think that'd be really, really smart to spend some time and solve that, because gosh, it sure is hard. Yeah, you show up to a club match and you're like, well, it's can you count? Cool. The classifier that has no bearing on anything we actually do in USPSA.
It does one thing. Can you count to 5?
Yeah.
That's it. Can you count to 5 as
Yeah.
fast as you can?
And it's like, well, okay, cool, but you can't zero it and you can't hundo it. So why do we even have it anymore?
Well, and it also gives this false illusion to a lot of people that their classification, like your classification, is not based on how well you shoot. Can you count?
Yes,
because you are literally touching the gun to the target, like a caveman could do this. But I agree with you. I don't know if 10 years is. I think 10 years is too long, to be honest with you. But 5 is too short. So I'm saying 7.
I am okay with it. I don't care the time period as much as I care that I think we need to have an honest conversation about looking at some of these classifiers that have been around for a long time and saying, can we actually get to a place where we say we have new ones coming in? Let's retire the old ones. Let's keep a few of them, right? I mean, like El Presidente. Mm-hmm. You can't get rid of El Pres. It's just a thing. And so, I mean, keep some of those around because they're just classically good tests of skill. Now, you'll never hundo it, but they're good to have. But generally speaking, we should be moving them out. I don't see a problem with that. So that's 2. I would like to go ahead.
But even though people who hundo, the hero and zero those classifiers, right? Mm-hmm. So, and honestly, even if we keep some of those older ones around, have the top level GMs actually shoot that at match pace and collect data to actually keep the hit factor legitimate instead of at like 120% of actually be able to hundo it. It's absolutely garbage, because even though you might be a master or an A class, you can't perform that way in a match for that classifier. It doesn't make sense.
Right. So. There was a time when I had this idea that my classification meant something. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I will do anything to get this next letter or whatever. And then I started actually traveling outside of my area and I started shooting like bigger matches. And I had this realization that who I am at those matches is actually who I am. And if I'm a B class at the national level, then that's really who I am. And in a funny way, like some people like, well, that's really disheartening to like realize that, you're not actually a master or an A class or whatever, you're really a B class. But for me, it was really like rewarding, because I was like, cool, this is who I am when I'm going up against the best. And that's what I really wanted to know. And at that point, to be honest with you, the classifier stopped meaning what it used to. And I was happy to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Like even for me, like at a major match, I want to shoot my whatever my classification is, I want to shoot that percentage.
Yeah.
That's just the goal. It's, sure, your local matches maybe win the local match because you have a shot, right? So try to win the local. But then at major matches, it's shoot your classification percentage.
Yeah.
And I mean, we will get our feelings hurt at Area 5 because Max is showing up.
But that to me, that always makes me happy, because I like knowing how I am compared to the real good people. I love it when Nils or Max or Mason show up. I think that's just amazing, because you're like, cool, these guys are the best. And how am I compared to the best? Mm-hmm. And that's, you'd go through, you'd reshoot classifiers, or you try and do better, and you pay your money. And I remember all that. I remember trying all that and playing that game. And eventually you're just like, why am I that guy anymore? Right. And it was, but let's see. So what else should they do? I want to see USPSA put a bigger emphasis on new shooter matches. I think that the new shooter match I think it's a good bridge to getting people into it. I know certainly around here locally, I like to think that what I've done for the past couple of years has been well received. I can go through our local club and point to a whole host of people that came through that new shooter match. And so I'd love to see the new shooters have a place they can go. The challenge with that is if you have to have a person running that match who is a teacher, you can't have a range master. You can't have Troy McManus. And it's not because Troy's good or bad or anything like that, but because Troy comes to the world with a view set based around the rule book, which is correct. but that's not correct for new shooters.
Right. You got to give it them dumbed down enough where common person can understand it, that doesn't really understand the rules of the game. Like, they don't care about hit factor. They just need to be able to stay safe and have fun.
Yeah.
And you got to
that's the key.
Right. And they've got to be able to communicate it, and you got to give them just enough where they know what they need to do and nothing more. Because as soon as you give them all that extra detail, they're like, who the I don't care about blah, blah. Like, I don't care
hit
about
factor. What is hit factor? Well, trust me, it doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And it's there's some things like we put on I don't know, months ago we talked about our new shooter match or class that we were putting on up at our club. I talked to you about that, and it's like we sat through that helping them, and I'm like, we didn't need to cover half of this shit. Like, we could have got onto the range a little bit quicker, and not give them so many rules. Like, it's not like they need to know the kind of the range commands. As long as someone's there to guide them through to be safe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But that's hard. You're going to have a hard time actually getting that, because you're going to have that school of thought that's like, no, you got to know everything before you can even touch a gun. And it's like, nah, dude, if you get them out there, I mean, you give them the standard, that 30-minute new shooter range brief. And then you take them out there, you have some really simple, straightforward stages that you set up, and you help them succeed. That's the key here, is to help people succeed in going from one step to the next. And honestly, you have to sort of get comfortable with the idea that people are going to break firearm rules of our game. Now, as long as they don't break like Robert's rule, which is pointing the gun at me, we don't really have a problem, right? But you have to understand that sometimes people, in their trying to learn, they're going to run around, their finger's going to be in the trigger. They're just going to do those things. And you have to be able to be like, cool, good job. Hey, let me tell you about some things. It's a way to solve these things. Let me show you how to reload this gun so that you're not pointing the gun back up range or something like that. I'd love to see USPSA do that. Let's see. I think that USPSA should have basically a new club guide. And I envision it as this idea where you go through and you get all the match directors, and they basically put out a list of like, here's the best practices that we've ever had. Here's the good ideas. Here's the pitfalls, the things that we screwed up when we first started, that if somebody had told us we wouldn't do it. I'd like to see people put that into a booklet form, or even in a PDF, something on the USPSA website, that a brand new match director could go through and just read it at their leisure. Just learn from my mistakes, kind of thing. I could tell you, I have a whole host of things that I have screwed up as a match director that I'm like, I could tell people how to avoid, a good year and a half worth of headache.
Right. Well, and even if you think about it, even if they put out 5 cardinal rules as a new match director, the 5 cardinal rules of don't do these 5 things and your life will be easy, especially starting out your first year. No one expects super national level stages on the ground. They expect legal stages on the ground, and they might not be very original. They might be 8888, but we don't
give them something to do. Yeah.
Right. And you'll learn. But that's the cool thing about, like, at least at our club locally, like, I'm the young guy and I'm getting mentored all the time on the range. Like, and there's things like, they spit something out of the rule book. I'm like, are you sure? Like, I think I've read this thing. Like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so we won't do this. We'll fix it with this. Or just general rules of how to design a stage, and be like, well, if you're going to put this in the stage, don't just make it an option. Give them a reason to use the option. Like, why is there a port here? I was lazy and grabbed the port wall. No, we're going to find a way that they need to go to this port.
Right.
Reason, even if it's just one target. Like,
yeah. I was going to say, though, one of the things that, and Jake, they did it, and I was very, very happy about this. It was one of Jake's pet projects for a long, long time, but I always wanted them to take and put all of the stages online, that like our national stages. And I'm very happy that they did that. And it looks like they're still working on it. They're getting it better. But sometimes you just burn out. You just do. And you, like, if you're kind of a one-man show and you're trying to come up with stages every single week or whatever, the thing that'll kill a match faster than anything is just the burnout. And so it was really nice to see them actually put stages up there. And in the future, I see them, if they can go through and allow it to be, you can tag them and add keywords and say, okay, I'm shooting an indoor match, 25-yard bay, and have all that stuff come up. It's gonna be fantastic. The last thing the USPSA really needs to do, they just need to get rid of the rule book and go with one rule to rule them all. We'll call it Robert's rule. And if you don't point the gun at me, then everything else is on the table.
I like Robert's rule.
I love Robert's rule. I love it more when I'm wandering from stage to stage and I hear somebody actually like mention, oh yeah, just don't break Robert's rule. What's Robert's rule? Don't point the gun at Robert. They're like, oh, that's a good rule. Yes, it is a good rule.
Whoever's running the timer is Robert. That's pretty good. Yeah. And there's some things, you got to follow the rules, but when sometimes there's a learning moment of like, was it really 180 or was it like really 190, right? Or it's like
that is hard. That is always a hard thing that you're going to have to deal with, as especially in a new shooter match instruction, in a lot of those things of. And so I have a policy. I've been a CRO for a long time now, but I have a policy. If I think, then it didn't happen.
I have to know.
I will never make a call that I don't know happened. I just won't do it. I mean, if I say, well, I think this happened, then the shooter wins every single time. I will never burn a shooter over something I think. And
without an absolute shadow of a doubt, you need to know.
Yeah. And I would rather a shooter get away with something than me screw a shooter over. And I've done it. I have screwed up as a CRO, and I've done the wrong thing, and it haunts me. I never get over those things because it was me that screwed it up for the shooter. And I've never liked the CROs and the ROs in matches that basically do the buddy system of, you couldn't have even seen that. Oh yeah, but I know he did it. It's like, no, we should, as ROs and CROs, it is our job to present the playing field as level as possible and to give the shooters the best experience that they have earned. But you should never play the game in an us versus them mentality. It should never be that way. It should always be, we're all here. We're trying to have a good, safe, and fun time, and we're going to play that game. And at the end of the day, Yi Min taught me this, and somebody taught him that, but he said, you use the rule book to keep people in the match. And that's how you should look at it. You should never look at it from the notches on your belt. And Lord knows I've had matches where it's been that notches on your belt kind of thing. And I don't ever want to see that again.
Right. And honestly, that's why there's at least 2 to 3 ROs on a squad. Like, if you didn't see it, maybe somebody else did, or no, I didn't see it. Okay. Well, then it didn't happen. So we're good here,
Yeah. And there is no shame. I think ROs sometimes get their egos wrapped up in things, and there is absolutely no shame to stand back and be like, you know what? I didn't see it. Cool. He gets a reshoot.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. And that gives every benefit to the shooter possible. And that's how you should always want to be.
Right. And the only worst thing is, they got a reshoot out of it. Now, sometimes shooters do things definitely on the side of caution, or that they do things a little bit risky, and it's like you get the weird jumps. I bet you've seen it. You're just like, it's like, well, they didn't do anything wrong, but that sure scared the piss out of me.
Yeah, there is kind of a thing when if I go up to somebody, I'm like, you were really close to the 180, then they broke the 180, but it wasn't enough that I'm like, okay, I could certainly do it, but I'm at least going to tell them, hey, this is what I think I saw. Just be aware of it. I'm not sending you home or anything like that. Just put it in your hat to be cognizant of it.
And depending on the stage, it's so hard as the guy on the timer to make those 180 calls.
Oh yeah, because you should be looking at the gun.
And counting rounds, and there's a whole list of things like that keeps every time I pick up the timer. I got to think of something else. I got to think about like that double stack. How many shots did they throw at that double stack of targets? Can I call that they didn't shoot at the XYZ? Did they totally not engage the second target in the double stack?
Yeah,
there's so many things like they didn't even think about shooting at the target, but they shot 3 rounds. So then you can argue, well, did they shoot at it? And they just keep to miss all 3 times.
And and from my perspective, if they've use that scenario, if they've torched 3 rounds at it, they're already behind the power curve. What is me throwing another penalty on top of it of something that I'm not like, hand of God certain.
Oh yeah, the mic's already going to get them. Like the mics on target are already going to be horrific enough.
Yeah.
No, and I like those rules. What's the next question? There's another question. I know there is. Oh, why don't you RO nationals anymore?
Why don't I RO nationals? Well, I've RO'd nationals twice. I was CRO at Frostproof a couple years ago. Sometimes it's hard because it feels like as an RO, you're basically somebody else's you're somebody else's bitch. And they're trying really hard not to do that, and I respect that, but it is hard to basically take a week of your life off to go work a nationals match. And I like it. I like working nationals. To be really honest with you, the reason I like working matches, I love the people. I like all the people. I love the people that come through. I like talking to all the people. And I think that's probably the biggest highlight of it. But a lot of it's just time. I mean, I've been an RO at some matches, and it's just like I feel like I'm just being taken advantage of.
Yeah, well, especially when it's at least 5 days or 6 days of your time away from home. It's very difficult. I mean,
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that I don't want to do it, but
yeah, and it's like I've worked so many matches, like just around the country and doing things like that, that when you have like the range master, you know what they're going to say. You know the song, you know the dance, you know how it's all going to play out. But when they kind of just treat you like you're basically their slave and servant, sometimes it just sits a little bit wrong with you. And I think I would probably do it, but I think I'd have to have a really good group of friends to do it with, because it would be hard to do it on my own.
Right. And it's got to be the right location too,
Yeah.
Can't always go to Florida.
No. And that Florida match was a lot of fun. That was interesting. I had never experienced humidity to that degree before. I mean, the sun is out and you're sweating your brains out because it's wet. And that makes no sense in the world until you're in it. And it's just like, I don't know how people live like this. I mean, give me the nice high mountain dry air any day of the week.
Oh, absolutely. That's for sure. Well, I don't know what high mountain air is, but yeah, not humid. I don't like humid.
It's actually really easy. Turn your oven on to about 450 and then stick your head in it. That's glorious.
Ugh. Cool.
Some people are like, oh, no,
Yeah,
no, thank you, not at all.
Yeah. Well, Robert, we're coming near the decent end of the show. I've got a few more questions, and then
Send them.
Who are or have been the biggest mentors or supporters for you in the sport?
My wife. I mean, it's trite to say that, right?
Right.
But the thing about this game is we all go off on some weekend and we hang out with our buddies, and then we come home, and it's my Andrea that, I mean, she holds the house down. She makes sure that everything is running, and she's always been very supportive to me in that regard. And so, I mean, they are the ones who ultimately we come home to at the end of the day. And I think people often forget how important that is. But if you're talking about like in terms of teaching me and being there for me, Tommy, Steve, Kenny, the guys on the Paracast have been huge. John Batista is he's the one that takes time out of his week every single week, and we dry fire, and he helps answer my questions, and he points out where I'm doing things wrong, and I've been forever grateful for that. Yi Min is a dear friend of mine, and he and I, there's never a week that goes by where we're not bouncing ideas off each other. Just everybody. I mean, there's so many people that Steve Terry at our local club, he's the president of Slipsa, and I guess I can just talk on and on about all these people that have just been helpful for me. And I know that I should say like these big huge names, but it's all the people that show up and they're building the matches and they're putting things on the ground that you get to see how great USPSA is. We talk about USPSA on the national level and all these things that are going wrong, but it's all these guys that are down on the local level that are building the matches and setting things up and working the pads and like running shooters. Those are the guys who like just make this game just so amazingly good, because you get to see the best of people. And that's always meant a lot to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's the guys who don't get the thank yous at the match or after the match. You know, you build the stage every week or every month, and it's like you put it on because you want to shoot, and that's part of how you give back. But then you don't really get the thank you that you feel like you deserve. But you don't do it for the thank you either. You do it for the love of the sport.
Absolutely. No, 100. That is 100% correct. And I just wish there was a way that we could recognize the efforts of all these people. I put this post up as like, there's, God bless all the people who show up early and stay late to build all these stages and do all these things for the sport. And they do it for the love of the game. They do it just for the love of the game. And they're never going to win the big trophies or anything like that, but they're the guys who make these things possible. And I think that we at our peril forget how important those guys are and all the things that they do. You talk about all these, like these high end shooters, the top end guys, they're not the ones who make these matches happen. They show up, they shoot the match, they get all the awards and the accolades, and we love them for that because they're awesome. And it is fun to see how good they are. But it's the guys who are showing up and building those matches, the unsung heroes of this game. I just respect the hell out of them. And I this game would not be possible without them.
Oh, absolutely. That's 100% Robert. It would, like, we would be all standing in a bay with nothing to do. And we'd just be like, well, no one set up the match. We're fucked. Well, I guess we got to do it now, I guess. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Robert, do you have any sponsors? Like you could say you have sponsors?
Well, I work for Gallant Bullets. They're a good company. I help them out with a bunch of stuff. The Armory, I kind of have two real sponsors, if you call it that, but the Armory who lets me run all of our matches in their bay, in their range, and Gallant Bullets.
They make bullets still?
They do. They're actually, boy, oh boy, they darn near died during COVID because they had all their orders, and I don't know what it was, but the employees are like, hey, we're not going to work anymore. Yeah. And so they like, they kept going through, like, staffing up and like losing them, staffing up and losing them. It was the craziest thing, but they're back. I mean, they never went away, but there was a time period where I was sitting there looking at the backlog, and I'm like, I don't know how you're going to dig out of this thing, Eli, but he's like, these people paid for a product, and we're going to get them the product. And there's been bumps and starts and stops along the way, but I sure do love him, and I like Eli. He's been a very dear friend of mine for a long, long time. I met him, and I was shooting another company's bullets, and he's like, hey, no worries, come over and hang out sometime in our shop if you want. And went over, and I hung out with him a little bit, and that other company went out of business, and Eli was right there, and I helped him with questions and stuff. But no, it's been good. So it's not a full-time job. I just do work with them, but those are my guys.
That's pretty cool. Robert, where can they find you on the internet?
I'm not super active on social media, but if you go to Instagram, I mean, I run the Paracast page. So you can go to Paracast Podcast, but honestly, if you go to Telegram and look up the Paracast, it's not the Ghost Show, but if you look at the Paracast on Telegram, I'm there pretty much 24/7. I guess that is my social media extent.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, a bunch of people always are commenting on those things. Those are always entertaining, especially the side conversations when you ask for questions and then the side conversation.
Come. Oh yeah, sometimes those things get a little bit long-winded and spicy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. So I mean, I'm in the Telegram, so go and check that out. Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robert, do you have any last final parting words before we punch this thing out of here?
No, take somebody shooting. That's what I would say, I guess. I love this game. Just take somebody shooting with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robert, for coming on. It's been a blast. It's been real, and it's been a real blast. So thank you, sir.
Thanks, man.
Yep. And to the listeners, thank you for checking out another episode of Manny Talks Shooting. I greatly appreciate your viewership. Until next time, get out and do the things, and I will see you on the next one.